Welcome to the Seven Figure Builder Show. My name is Julie Baranick, founder of Seven Figure Builder, where we help high achieving CEOs connect with their dream clients to scale to seven figures and beyond. And I'm here today with my friend, Stephen Rothberg. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Julie, it is great to be with you today.
Awesome. I'm excited to chat with you today. This is a new topic we haven't hit on before, so I'm really
Hmm.
excited to dig in.
Well,
But
it might be the first of many or the last of only one. Let's see how it goes.
I'm sure the first of many, but we'll have to see. So, first and foremost, where in the world are you?
I am in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But one of the nice things that my wife, who's also our CEO, and I have been able to do since becoming empty nesters 6 years ago now is a couple times a year, we'll take sort of an extended trip, usually 3, 4, 5 weeks, rent an Airbnb in some awesome city someplace, and we do what we call working remotely from working remotely.
I love it. And that is a gorgeous area. I was actually
Mm,
just across the river from you in upstate New York a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, that is gorgeous up there.
mhm.
So, for those that haven't had the pleasure to meet you yet, can you tell us a bit about your business?
Yeah, no sweat. So I am the founder and chief visionary officer of College Recruiter. It is a job search site for students and recent graduates. We believe that every student and recent grad deserves a great career. If you've heard of Indeed, LinkedIn, or way back when, say a career builder, Monster, it's online help wanted advertising. The customers that generate our revenue, that pay us, are employers that advertise their job openings with us. We're a niche site, so we focus on just a segment of the job seeker population. And so we focus on kind of that 0 to 5 years of experience. So think part-time jobs, seasonal jobs, internships, and what we call early careers, anything with that requires 0 to 5 years of experience. We're global. At any given time, there are about 2.5 to 3 million job ads advertised on our site in just about every market in the world.
I absolutely love that. And I know just from personal experience, having a son who just, graduated from tech school, it's very
Mm.
easy to get lost from the job perspective to
Oh
try to
yeah.
get yourself out there and, in the LinkedIn and Indeed and everything else. So I love the niche that you're in. I think it's amazing. So you focus on two different audiences, right? Like you have the job seekers and you have the employers. Um, which I think is awesome. But we'll start with the employer perspective. Like, how would they get involved? What does that look like for them?
Yeah. So, most businesses, a restaurant, a retailer, a hotel, whatever, they're operating in a single-sided marketplace. They only have one customer group. We're in what's called a double-sided marketplace. We have two different customer groups, as you think you were kind of alluding to. One is the candidate, the job seeker, like somebody like your son. They typically use a job search site, whether it's an Indeed, a LinkedIn, a college recruiter, for free. They don't pay, but we regard them as a customer because of the way we interact with them and that we need to serve their needs. The other group for most job sites, including college recruiter, that is our paying customer, are the employers. For us, the vast majority of our employer customers are large. They are Fortune 1000 companies, they're government agencies, or other employers that hire at scale. And I think it's that last group where some of your listeners are going to fit into. A company that hires at scale is usually hiring dozens, sometimes hundreds a year. Every once in a while, you'll even have organizations hiring thousands of early career candidates a year. The big consulting companies, the Amazons of the world. But most of the companies that are doing a lot of hiring are in sort of that dozens. You might be going from 40 employees this year to 70 next year. Might be a good example. The way that employers work with a typical job board, not us, is that usually it's a fairly low level person, junior person in the organization. Think recruiting coordinator, HR generalist, maybe a recruiter, will literally go out to the job search site, log into their account, pull out a credit card, and buy a 30-day job posting ad for maybe a couple $100. That's called post and pray. And you get what you get.
Right.
Sometimes the response is fantastic and it's the best $200 you've ever spent because you just got, you know, 20 applications, 5 of which were awesome, and 3 weeks later that, you know, your new hire is starting. If you can do that for $200, you're golden. And sometimes you get nothing. Sometimes you get 200 applications and they're all crap. We can get into like whose fault that is later on if you want. Um, our site is more in sort of a newer breed where we are pricing our services, the job posting ads, on a pay for performance basis, meaning that if you don't get results as an employer, we don't get paid. What those results are vary from customer to customer. Most of them, it's what's called a pay-per-click model. So when a candidate sees your job posting ad on College Recruiter and then hits the apply button, they go over to your site, to your employment site, your career site, maybe you have an applicant tracking system. That's when you pay. And it varies position to position what the hiring need is, but it might be $1 a click. So if we send 200 candidates to an employer site, they're going to pay $200. If they're trying to hire 1,000 people, they might want us to send 20,000 candidates to their site. And so the sort of the number of clicks that you need really varies position to position. An even newer option that's starting to gain some traction is pay per application. So just sending a candidate to your website that does not apply doesn't really help you. But if that candidate applies, that's getting you closer to the hire, to the point where you're actually extending an offer and they accept it. And so a small number, but rapidly growing, of employers are paying their job search vendors or partners, if you can call them that, on a pay per application basis. And that might be $25, $35, $50 per application. Again, the idea being that with most jobs, if you get 4, 5, 6 good applications, you should be able to hire somebody from that.
Okay. And yours, you said, is per actual hire, not the.
Yeah, no, we charge either, for the vast majority of our customers, we charge either per click, so that when the candidate goes to your website, or per application.
Gotcha. Okay.
Years ago, we had one employer where we tested out charging them on a per hire basis. And let's just say we'll never do that again. The reason is that the technology to accurately track that back,
yeah, that's hard.
doesn't exist. It's
exactly.
really, really hard. If you have a website and you're selling widgets, and the customer pulls out a credit card and buys the widget online in that first visit, it's really easy to figure out where that customer came from. But if a candidate sees your ad for the first time on Indeed and doesn't actually apply, and then they go over to Glassdoor to do some research on you, and they don't actually apply, and then they go to LinkedIn to see who do they know who works there, and they don't actually apply, and then they come to College Recruiter and see the ad and click through and apply. Are we the only source? Are we the only one who deserves to be paid? That's a multi-source problem. And that's really, really, it's sticky. It's a difficult problem to solve. Who deserves credit for that application and certainly for that hire? If we send the world's best candidate to you and you are horrible at interviewing them, should we not get paid? You know, and if we send a whole ton of crap to you and you're really desperate and you hire someone, should we get paid? So that's why pay per hire is very, very unusual in the job board space.
No, and that makes sense. And the paper application, I think, makes, and both of them, pay per click, paper application. I mean, it's similar to the ad model, but the more volume and the more eyes that get on whatever it is, your job ad, your widget, your whatever, obviously you have a better chance of making that sale or making that connection with the right hire. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah. Quantity matters. So does quality.
Yeah, absolutely. From the job seeker perspective, then,
Mhm.
what does that journey look like?
Yeah. So job seekers with College Recruiter, with the vast majority of job boards, what they should do is go to the job search site and run a bunch of different searches. They need to try to put themselves in the shoes of the recruiter, the person who actually wrote the job posting ad. Our site does this better than most. There are other sites that do it even better than we do. But if you are going to a typical job board, and let's say you're a nurse, and you type in nurse as the keyword, and then St. Louis, Missouri for the location for where you're looking for work. With our site, with better sites like an Indeed, if the employer posts a job and the job title that they use is RN, Indeed, LinkedIn, College Recruiter, the better ones will understand that RN is the same as nurse, and
Right.
they're going to show you the RN job. Some job boards won't. They are only going to show you exact matches. And so then you want to run RN, you want to run nurse, you want to run nursing, and a bunch of different kinds of keywords. Fortunately, those sort of antiquated search engines are becoming less and less common. But if you go overseas into some markets, some area of Asia, Africa, there are a lot of sites there that are running tech that are the software is like 20, 30 years old,
Yeah.
is how it works. And then you really have to be more flexible. Some of the schools are running homegrown systems where there was a developer at that school that 15 years ago hand coded a job board. It might be built off of WordPress or whatever. That search tends to be really dumb. And then you are going to have to run a bunch of searches. You run a search, you find, you might get 120 matches back or whatever it is that you're looking for. And you kind of go through it just like you would a Google search results page, looking for results that are of interest to you. Generally, the jobs that are of a better match are going to appear at the top of the search results. So once you get to page 2, it's kind of unlikely that you're going to find anything of interest. And you click through and you apply. With some job boards, you as a candidate apply on the job board, and then the job board's kind of behind the scenes sends your application to the employer. It might go by email, there might be some kind of integration, and that can vary employer to employer, job board to job board. For the job seeker, you don't care, and it really doesn't matter. You applied, it got to the employer. Other job boards like College Recruiter, what we do is we send the candidate to the employer's site to apply.
Gotcha.
And one of the reasons that we do that is that candidates that are applying to work for Exxon generally are going to feel more comfortable applying if they're on the Exxon website. They trust that brand. If you're applying to work in an Apple retail store and they're on the Apple website, then they're going to feel more comfortable applying. So it kind of removes some friction between the candidate and the employer. You don't have candidates feeling uncomfortable. I don't know this College Recruiter. Can I trust them with my data? If they're going to apply to work for Apple, they're going to trust Apple, and they should. Another reason why we do it, quite frankly, and I think the business owners listening in will appreciate this, is that we like to get paid. And so when we send a candidate to Apple's website, that's the click, and we get paid for that. So it's really, really easy then for Apple to verify that we sent them, and I'm just making up numbers,
Right.
12,122 people last month. And so here's your $6,000 or $18,000 or whatever that might translate into.
Yeah. And from the user slash mother perspective, my son trying to navigate this world but be independent in it. Um,
Yeah.
I like that personally because there's a lot of ambiguity of when someone is signing up for a job, and having been a job seeker myself over the years. But like
Mhm.
when you're looking for a job and you're going on a job board and you're filling out an application,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't know if you're just going into the void versus should I go look up that company's website, check out their career, section, and then go fill it out on that website. So,
Oh,
from a user perspective, it's like, well, where's the best place to set myself apart,
yeah. And it's a tough, it's a really great question. It's a tough one to answer because the short answer is it depends.
Mhm.
So if you're applying to a really solid brand like an Apple,
Mhm.
then applying on the Apple website, I can tell you you're never going to be better off than that. There might be some other places that you could apply to those jobs that would be just as good. If you apply on like an Indeed, Indeed is going to have a good integration with Apple, and so Apple will get that application and it'll be just as good. But most job seekers don't apply to work for companies like Apple. They apply to work for smaller companies. They apply to B2B companies that don't have a strong consumer brand. So you might be applying to work for a company that until you saw their ad, you didn't even know they existed. So how do is this a legitimate company? Do I want to apply there? Should I apply on a job board? Should I apply on a company website? Generally, if you apply on the employer's website, that's going to be at least as good as applying anywhere else.
Right.
But then there are some job boards like an Indeed where you can trust it. It's going to be solid. They're very legitimate. They're going to have good integrations. But if it's some job board that you've never heard of, that kind of, you just go there and it just seems flaky, kind of like this
There are a
just
lot
is
out there.
kind of, yeah, it's like, who coded this? Like Stalin in 1952? That's a place where you probably don't want to trust it. That black hole of applying to jobs is, man, I mean, that's for as long as people have been applying to jobs, that's been a problem. You apply
Yeah.
to a job and the employer never responds back to you. It is, it's disgusting to me how candidates can be so interested in applying to your job and you can't even be bothered to set up even an automated thank you to just confirm I got your application. You're going to hear back from somebody within 5 days, 12 days, whatever it is. Candidates deserve more respect than the vast majority of employers pay to them.
I agree. And quite honestly, it's a lot of work. Like to, other than on Indeed doing quick apply, quick apply, quick apply, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a very, easy way to do things, but it's very hard to set yourself apart that way. But when you actually go through that trouble of filling out the application, putting in the thought, filling out their questions, like it's a lot of work and you do hundreds of them potentially and then never hear back. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, and there's a ton of easy, free automation for
Mhm.
employers of all sizes to be able to automatically respond to each and every application. So if you are a six-figure employer and you as the owner are also the HR department, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't have enough time to respond to 40 people who applied to my ad. You might be right, but have them apply to resumes at xyzcorp.com and set up an autoresponder in Google Workspace or whatever software you're using so that everybody who sends an email to that address gets an automated response. Thank you for contacting XYZ Corporation. We received your email. You will hear back from us within 5 business days, 12 business days, whatever that timeline is. And that's all you need to do for that first point of contact for people who are just applying to your jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can even say, if you're a good fit, we'll reach out to you. But at least people know to expect a contact or not expect a contact, or they don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like you've just ghosted them. And, it
Yeah.
builds that relationship from day one if they end up becoming your employee.
Yeah. And especially for B2C companies, restaurants, whatever, the people who are applying to your jobs are probably also your customers.
Right.
And when you don't have enough courtesy to respond to them, to thank them for their interest, they're not going to have enough courtesy to continue to pay you money to buy your pizzas or whatever it is that you're selling.
Yeah, absolutely. So you focus more on the niche of, fresh out of school,
Mhm.
interns, those types of things. What type of companies do you see that are able to use them successfully within their business?
Yeah. One of the big misconceptions in the market, and this is not just the case in the US, but this is pretty much the case globally,
Hmm.
is that there's this misconception that most people work for small businesses.
Hmm.
It's actually not true. Most people are hired by small businesses, but small businesses have a far higher turnover than large businesses. So a small business might actually have a 100 or sometimes even a 2, 3, 400% turnover in a year. People stay with them only for months on average. Think fast food, call centers, stuff like that. Large organizations tend to have people stay with them for 3 years, 5 years on average. And large organizations are also the employers that hire the vast majority of college and university students and recent grads. So if you go to any kind of post-secondary school or graduated from one, it's far more likely that you're going to get hired into your first job by a large organization. And so those are the organizations that we tend to focus on. When I say large, I'm talking about large hiring need, not necessarily 10,000 employees,
Right.
but again, that dozens or hundreds a year. If you're hiring one person here, one person there, you're probably going to be best off using a site like ZipRecruiter or Indeed or LinkedIn. They're really good. They have a really good e-commerce options. You can log in, you create an account, pull out a credit card, pay a couple $100 or whatever for the posting. And it's simple and you can move on and you'll probably get the applications that you need to hire that person.
Hmm.
When your needs start to scale up and you're looking for dozens, hundreds, those still continue to be good sites. But then you start to get into other sites as well, other niche sites. If you're hiring a lot of engineers, they're probably sites that focus specifically on engineers. If you're in St. Louis and you are opening up, you know, 4 retail shops and you need to hire 100 people over the next 3 months, they're probably going to be really good sites in St. Louis or that focus on retail help that can help you. So it really varies considerably depending upon the employer. For us, it's those organizations that hire a lot of early career talent. That's our focus.
Absolutely. And what do you see companies do with overhiring? Like having been in corporate management myself, what do you see people do?
Overhiring is definitely been a big issue in the last, what's it been, 2 years now, I think. Kind of as we came out of the worst of the COVID pandemic, and you started to see a lot of these tech layoffs,
Mhm.
starting, I think, mostly with the bigger, more prominent tech companies in San Francisco, and then it's kind of spread somewhat to the rest of the country and into different industries. When we all came out of COVID and companies started to rapidly staff up again, there was this panic, literally panic in HR, in management, big businesses, small businesses. How am I going to hire the people I need? And so there was this hoarding mentality. It was almost like toilet paper in the summer of 2000. It's
Right?
like, oh, I don't need toilet paper. My husband and I have like 48 rolls at home, but I'm in Target and they have toilet paper on the shelves. I better buy 3 packages because who
Right.
knows when they're going to have it again. And that same mentality happened with hiring. There's a software engineer available. We better hire her. I get it. Fear is a powerful motivator, but it also leads you into making some bad decisions. So I think a lot of the layoffs that we've been seeing in the news over the last year or so have been a result of overhiring. It's really hard for an employer to be able to project out what are my needs going to be in 3 months, in 2 years. And especially when we came through this pandemic, where almost none of us had ever been through a pandemic before, and certainly not in a digital age, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how long is this boom going to continue. And so there were a lot of organizations that hired people based upon what they thought they were going to need 3, 6, 12 months later, but then ended up not needing. And as a result, there have been a lot of people who've been hired and then let go just months later through no fault of their own. there's not an easy answer to that, but it's obviously really, really hard for an owner, for a manager to let go of people like that. And it's way harder for the person who was let go to be in that situation.
Sure. And what have you seen the role that AI has played in all of this? Like both from the
Uh,
application perspective, the screening perspective, like what have you seen?
yeah, so AI is potentially going to be either our best friend or worst enemy when it comes to hiring people. One of the great things or great promises of AI is that it should be able to surface or bring to light candidates that we might not have thought about before. Um, you're hiring a retail manager, and AI brings to your attention a candidate without a retail management degree, maybe without retail experience, maybe without management experience, but there's something in her track record. Maybe she was a sergeant in the US Army. Clearly, great managerial skills to be in a role like that. And the stress of working in a retail environment can't be more than the stress of being on a battlefield, right? Those people, I think AI has a lot of promise to bring those sorts of non-traditional candidates to be like front and center for those recruiters. On the other hand, AI also has a really fantastic way of discriminating against candidates. So if your organization has always hired males to be your software engineers, maybe not deliberately, maybe that's just the way it's worked out. If you train your AI on the resumes of the people who work for you, the AI is going to say, okay, company XYZ has 12 software engineers. They're looking to hire a 13th. What are the common characteristics between the 12? They're all dudes. They all have like obnoxious Adam's apples bobbing up and down. They all could, maybe use a shave. Those are characteristics that a good recruiter, a good hiring manager, a good owner would say are irrelevant. Your gender shouldn't matter if you're going to be a good software developer or not. But the AI won't understand that if it's not properly trained. So one of the lessons that employers have started to learn is not to train AI based upon who your current employees are, but to train AI on who you want your employees to be. So grab a whole bunch of resumes instead of the 12 software developers who work for you today. Grab 2,000 resumes from LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever, and these are the kinds of people that we're looking for, and use
Right.
that to train AI. AI has a lot of promise for candidates to make it easier to apply to jobs. If your son's been applying to a bunch of jobs, then he knows how incredibly painful it is to answer the same questions over and over and over again. Sometimes the same employer asks the same questions 14 times. Because they've got a bunch of disconnected systems, the AI can do all of that for them. The AI can find job opportunities that he may not have found on his own, that his keyword searches might not have surfaced the job posting ads that are actually a good fit for him. So that's promising. That nurse example that I gave earlier, nurse RN, that's an example of AI that's been actually around for a long time,
Mhm.
where the AI understands that RN is the same as nurse, and so it's going to match you up. For employers, I think another thing that I would watch out for is that AI is going to massively increase the number of people who are applying to your jobs. That because it's going to be easier for people to apply to jobs, you're going to get more job applications. And part of that is you're going to get fictitious job applications. We're already starting to see this. And some employers, when they look at who applied to their jobs, if they really look carefully, they're going to see that some of these resumes, there's just something weird about them. It's Bob Smith applying to the job, and on the surface, everything looks right. But when you look at Bob's email address, it's xr40i34978@gmail.com.
Right.
It's like something's weird about that. Probably that's an AI generated resume, and it could end up leading you into some kind of like fraud path where
Yeah.
you are corresponding with a bot and there might be some kind of financial fraud there. And the same is true on the job seeker side, that they're applying to jobs that don't exist with companies that don't exist. And they're handing over all their personal information.
Yeah.
And then they're, Julie, hey, congratulations, you're hired into this remote marketing coordinator role. If you'll send us your bank account information, we'll be sure to do your direct deposits.
Yeah.
And you send them your banking information, and mysteriously, your checking account has even less money in it than you thought it did.
Yeah. No, that's very legit and very scary because you don't think about it from that perspective, but you're giving
Mhm.
them all your personal information. So it's very easily, and you're vulnerable because you're looking for opportunities. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's very easy to get taken advantage of that way.
yeah, absolutely. There's a ninth level of hell that is devoted to these people.
Seriously. I always say if these people would like actually apply themselves to legitimate opportunities and like helping people, it's amazing what they could accomplish. But
Oh yeah, yeah. It
I
just
don't
wouldn't be as entertaining for them, but
know.
but they do look good in orange jumpsuits, so that's promising.
For sure. One other kind of tie on to that is, I guess, one of my favorite topics is soft skills versus hard skills.
Yeah,
Do you see, what do you recommend for people, having been in management myself, like I have my own thoughts, but what do you see?
yeah. So, let me reverse it, the order, because I think it'll be easier for the listeners who might not know what that is. So, a hard skill would be something where it's a very job related. You're an engineer, you need to have an engineering degree. If you are doing software development, you can demonstrate your proficiency in coding in Python, something along those lines. If you're laying concrete, you can demonstrate that you like know how to mix it, how to lay it down, all of that. That's very, very an actual skill that you would sort of think about from a job perspective. A soft skill, they tend to be more things like interpersonal skills. And one of the things that I'm feeling good about, I'm 57, so I've been doing this for a few years, that when I got into the labor market, when I was a teen working for others, hard skills were far more important than soft skills. Very few employers paid attention to soft skills, which I think is one reason why so many offices and workplaces were so dysfunctional. Because you had people who, boy, they were really, really great accountants, but real asses and just awful to work with. Now, I think companies have started to understand that people have to get along and you have to be able to manage your direct reports. You have to be able to manage up. You have to be able to work across department lines. And especially in knowledge-based work, where we're working remotely, a lot of us, maybe hybrid, and the ability to communicate with your coworkers in an effective, efficient way is really important. As we've moved away from, holding a hammer in one hand and a shoe in the other and making shoes like, people would have been doing in like the 1700s, and instead making virtual products or interacting with people globally, soft skills have become far more important. So when people are looking for work, whether it's somebody early in their career like your son, whether it's somebody who's more my age and is maybe looking for a career change, maybe they've been laid off, maybe they're just fed up after 12 years of doing the same thing, highlight your soft skills. You'll be amazed at how many recruiters, when they're looking at candidates in their database, they're actually keyword searching some of that stuff. Not just, do you know how to use Excel, but they're actually looking for communication skills. They're looking, and so if you work for organizations, if you've done public speaking, if you've motivated your team, if you've hit certain goals, the more that you can quantify that, the better. If you've led a team of people, for example, and your team hits certain quotas or sales numbers or productivity numbers, quantify that as best as you can. Employers love that.
They
To
do.
see that to see that your team improved productivity in a 2-year period by 87%, you're going to get that interview.
Yeah. that and polishing those soft skills for the interview and actually engaging with people. Like, soft skills are much harder to teach than hard skills. Like you
Yeah.
can teach most of the hard skills that people need. Obviously, they need to have a clue of what they're doing and be
Yes.
teachable. But the teachable part is a soft skill,
Yeah.
and that's huge. And like I said, having been in corporate and management and hiring people was one of my favorite things to do, interviewing people, hence why I do this. Like I enjoy the interview process because you learn so much about people all the way around. And yeah, soft skills are huge in my opinion. So I would agree with you.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's good. I think it's good that employers are paying more attention
Mhm.
to it. It's kind of hard to teach somebody not to be a jerk,
Totally.
and it's pretty
Totally.
easy. It's pretty easy to teach them how to read a balance sheet.
Correct. Yes, I agree. So you've done a ton with your business, accomplished a lot, personally, professionally. How do you define success? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, they say that with age comes wisdom. I've certainly got the age. Well, your listeners can decide whether I've got the wisdom or not. I'll put it this way. I definitely am more wise than I was 30 years ago. Whether I'm wise, that's a different question, I suppose. But one of the things that I learned a really long time ago before I started this business, I was really fortunate to have a series of just fantastic managers. One of my managers said to me, I thought he was ancient. He was looking back on it, he was probably about as old as I am now. So I was probably right. So he was ancient. But what he said to me was that in life, success is measured by doing three things: that you want to be able to pay your bills, you want to be happy, and you want to leave the world a little bit of a better place than you found it. And if you can do all three of those things, you're a success. And I think when I'm doing things well in life, that's how I'm living my life.
That's amazing. I couldn't agree more. I think when we can just impact the people around us even just a little bit and make the world a little bit better, then, we do that together and the world gets better little by little.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what can people expect from you next? I know you've got lots going on in your business world and everything happening there.
Yeah. Aside from kind of like where the business is going, just sort of the way I take your question is like me personally. So one of the things that's been happening with me personally with work over the last year and a half or 2 years has been that my role within the company has really changed. It's changed for the better for me. I'm better at my work and my contributions to the company are better because I'm getting out of the trenches. I do very little day-to-day operational work, which is really great for all involved because that's where I'm the weakest.
Right.
And I get to spend a lot more time on strategic, looking at where do we need to be 2 years from now, looking at things like what are companies in other industries doing that's working really well, and what can we beg, borrow, and steal from that will improve our business. And so that's where I focus most of my time on. Some of your listeners might be familiar with EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System, popularized by a book called Traction. If they aren't, rush out to your favorite bookstore, online, offline. I don't get a commission or anything, but I'm a huge evangelist for it. And my role in the company is what they call the visionary. And that's the person who sort of like defines and then communicates the strategy to the team, and then others within the organization execute on that. It's really, really rewarding for me to do that. I think I'm pretty good at it. When I have problems, when I'm not doing things well, it's when I tend to stray into other people's lanes and get too involved in operational type issues. So I think over the next, year or two, I'll be doing even less of the operational stuff and even more of the visionary stuff.
Awesome. And that's, in my opinion, lots of fun.
Yeah.
Being able to drive the vision and make sure you're headed the right direction, right?
I love it. Other people can't stand it. It's hard I think, for all of us to put ourselves into the shoes of others,
Mhm.
but I don't know how anybody couldn't love this.
Mhm. That's amazing. And if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
It's a great question. If I had the intention of everybody, I think the thing that I would want to see the most is for us to do more of sort of acting according to what I think of as being the golden rule. You know, the golden rule that a lot of people define that as, you know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I disagree with that. I think it's doing unto others as they would have you do unto them. So, you know, Julie, you might be totally fine with somebody treating you like crap, but that doesn't mean that somebody else wants you to treat them like crap, right? People have different standards, people have different needs, people have different wants. And we should treat people how they want to be treated, not how we want them to treat us. There's a difference. And I think if we can really be more empathetic and be better at understanding what different people want, what different people need, and then try to do that for them, that we'll all be in a better place.
Love that. And just being, sensitive and aware of how people are responding to you and interacting with you and taking that as constant feedback, which is really powerful.
Yeah, yeah. And it requires really good listening skills and really good empathy. And there are times where I have both.
On the good days, right? So, how can listeners best support you in your work? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, if they've got any questions, comments, whatever, feel free to shoot me an email, Steven, Steven, at collegerecruiter.com. You want to just sort of go to our site, see what we do, like, your son is a job seeker at collegerecruiter.com. And, shockingly, you'll find me on LinkedIn.
Imagine that. It's a good place to find you. Awesome. I will definitely send him there, and I look forward to digging deeper myself. And I hope lots of the listeners can check it out, both, like I said, from employer side, the job seeker side. Absolutely. It's an amazing site. So kudos for what you guys are doing there. It's really powerful.
Awesome. It was a real pleasure talking to you, Julie, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you found value in this episode, please do share it. That's how people find us. And you can find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.